Shor shahaya mischaven l'chaveroi. There was a shor that was aiming for another shor. It was trying to attack another shor. And v'hika isha, and instead it hit an isha. V'yatzu yulada, and her yuladim were killed. Zakta Gemara, pater mit dmei vladis.
Where's our screen?
Akiva took it. He needed it for a function. So the halach is pater mit dmei vladis. He's pater from dmei vladis. So Rashi says it doesn't make a difference by his shar, even if the shar was aiming for the woman. He's still pater from dmei vladis because a shar never pays the dmei vladis. The reason why the Mishnah used the Shlosh is because the next Mishnah is going to be talking about a person, and there it makes a big difference. So and this woman lost her children. Oh, so the law is pater mit mei vlados. The owner of the ox does not have to pay for the vlados. The adam shoyim mischaven l'chaveri, and so that's why it uses shor over there. The adam shoyim mischaven l'chaveri because isha yotzi yilada mishalem dmei vlados. Why? Because he didn't intend to hit the woman; he intended to hit his friend, and therefore he has to pay moment. There's no chiv misa. Therefore, he has to pay for the dmei vlados. Ketat mishalem dmei vlados. How do you assess the value of vlados? A woman had an Uber and now she lost it. Zok to Mishnah, Shomin is isha kama hiyofa ad yolda. You assess the value of this woman in the slave market while she's expecting. The kama hiyofa misha yolda, and how much she would be worth when she gives birth, after she gives birth. So there's a drop in value. The difference in value is what the Dmei Vlados are. Amar Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel argues on how do you make this assessment. And he says something that's going to need a lot of explanation, and the Gemara will explain. But let's just see the words of Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. Im Kain, if you're going to tell me that, Misha Isha Yerledes Misha Bachas, to the contrary, a woman, once she gives birth, she's worth more. A pregnant woman, taking away her Vlad, but looking at her own value, her value would go up. Because when a woman is expecting, she's in a matzav of sakana. There's a great risk to her. So once she has the child, or if it aborts, in this case it aborted, and she didn't have a child, but the fact is she will be worth more money now because now there's no danger on it. So therefore he argues with the Chachamim's assessment, and you just look independently at the value of the v'lodos. And that's what you pay to the husband, exclusively to the husband of the wife, and it's not even the husband necessarily. We learned earlier in the Gemara, it means the father of the children. As Rashi quotes here, even if it was a bias nus that conceived these children, it doesn't matter. The Torah said the Dmei Vladis goes to the father.
Dmei Vladis just current status, or what future this,
No, it means the current status.
What's a Vlad worth? That's just one.
I'm assuming someone would buy that as an evid in the shul.
So would it be?
Oh, so it is what its future value is, right? Now you buy it for its potential. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay. The im ein law. Baal, what if she doesn't have a husband? So who gets paid? Who gets paid for? The Vladis. Noisin liyarshav. It would be given to the Yarshim of the Baal. So it doesn't go to her. She doesn't have any ownership in the Vlad. It's the husband and the husband's descendants. Haisa shifra v'nishtachara oigiyaris. If she was a shifra, the mother of these children that were killed was a shifra v'nishtachara oigiyaris pater, then the person is pater to pay completely. Why? What does that have to? What does her status have anything to do with it? Zok Rashi, Kloimer, Haisa Mishachareres, Oigiyaris, Nesua Lager. We're not really focusing on her status, we're focusing on his status. And Rashi is going to tell us, and the assumption is that who is a Mishachareres going to marry? Probably someone like her. Also an Evid Mishacher. Who would a Giyaris marry? Usually someone just like herself, a Ger. So that's really the focal point. Is if the father is a ger and therefore has no yorshim, or an Evid Meshucher, which is also like a ger and has no yorshim. So then it's potter because there's no one to pay. So kashem mishacheres agiyeres nesul lager le'eved mishacher ve'ein law pal, and her husband's not alive. Shemes, because the husband died. Potter, the owner of the ox that did the damage, is potter to pay. The amachzik benichse hager, actually not only the ox, the person who killed the uber of the lady, the person's potter to pay. Why? Because since she has no husband, the halach is hamachzik benichse hager shemeis ve'ein lo yarshim zacha. If a ger dies and he doesn't have yarshim, then his nechasim are hefker. If he had a son born to him or a daughter born to him after he became a ger, he has a yarsh. But if not, he's cut off from his family. He doesn't go to his father's family and his brothers because gerish and his kakat and shanoila. So you have here a chiv to pay came because someone killed the vlad someone killed a vlad, and that makes him chayiv to pay. But the problem is the person who owns it, his nechasim are hefker. So the mazik will instantly be kinda that schus because there is no one to have the schus because the ger is not alive anymore. Sagt Rashi, v'hayde nokat hay lishna hoysa shivcha v'nishtachara, v'lay nokat hoysa mishacheres. Why doesn't it just say she was a mishacheres? Why do we need to know that she was once a shivcha, now she's mishacher? If you tell us just that she's a mishacheres, obviously she was once a shivcha. Zok Rashi, that's an important point that the Mishnah makes. This is only relevant if this couple did not have surviving children. Because if there were surviving children, then of course the mazik would have to pay the surviving children because they would yashrin their father the ger. It's mashma like it just happened. They just got married. The mashma atami karov da'adayin lo hayu lehem bon. They didn't have any children. This was her first child, and therefore, it makes sense that there's no other yarsh. If it just had mishacheres, it means sometimes 10 years ago she was mishacheres. She might have had a lot of kids since then. But if it's in the immediate, if it's just in the immediate past, just occurred, she was a shivcha mishacheres. So that makes sense that there's no children. They're newlyweds. The same thing would apply. It was the Israelis who married a ger. What's relevant is the father's status. It's not relevant the mother's status. So it didn't have to be a case of a Giyaris married to a ger. It could be a Israelis married to a ger, and it would have the same halacha. Umei sager the potter. The Demei Vladish Labal. The Demei Vladish are exclusively to the Baal, which is the ger. So I was Efek Rashi. Why did the Mishnah pick the case that the wife was also a shivcha or a giyaris? Mishum destam shivcha mishacharas nesul l'mishacher destam giyaris lager. Rashi is telling us the halachas that a shadchan normally adheres to. If they find the giyaris who's looking for a shidduch, the first person that they'll think of to as a shidduch would be a ger, right?
Sure. Shorts again, the shorts.
That's right. And when the shidduch was read, he said, like, how did you think of this? What did you see in the two of us that you were putting us together? Gewaltig. Yeah, that's what I was saying. I meant, wow, what a great idea. How did you think of it? Okay.
Generally, when people become gay, if you haven't any good before, because it goes not for one of them after becoming gay.
Zoktim or taima, the mischaben lechaveroi. The only reason why, it seems from the Mishnah, the reason why it's potter from the Mevladois when the ox stoises this woman is because, as the Mishnah starts, because the ox was not mechaven to attack the woman, the ox was mechaven to attack another ox. Hamischaven leisha. But let's say, in fact, the ox wanted to attack the woman. Would you say mishalom to Mevladois? Would you say that our Mishnah holds that the owner of the ox does have to pay the Mevladois? This will contradict Rav Ada Barava, who taught us on Membeis Amud Aleph that when an ox stoises, no matter what, it never pays for the Mevladois. The Omer of Ada Barava, Shavarim sheneschavnu leisha, are ptur mit Mevladois. They're always potter. So why is it masha from our Mishnah that it's davke if the shore the shor is potter, the bala shor is potter for paying for the vlodos, dafke if the shor was neschaven l'chaver. Amalach Rada Bava. No. Amar Rada Bava, who adin tafilu neschavnu liisha nami peturin midvei vlodos. Who adin if the ox was neschaven liisha, the owner of the ox would still not pay the mevlodos. And therefore, it's not our kasha from the Mishnah. So why did the Mishnah say that? That it was neschaven l'chaveri. If it would be potter, even if it was mischaven l'isha, it's only because of the seifa. I did the kabbalah Mishnah seifa. Adam shayi mischaven l'chaveri, and there it's very irrelevant. The achiksiv kra. That's what the pasuk says. Katani meishinami shar shayi mischaven l'chaveri. What does it mean the achiksiv kra? Rashi, it says in the pasuk when it introduces this parsha of the Mevlodos, it starts off by saying ki natsu anoshim. Two men are fighting with each other. So you see that the case of the Torah is talking about alma b'mischaven l'chaveiroi mishnah. That is the case of the Torah. When the Torah discusses this halacha, it's talking about a man who wanted to punch his friend, and he swung and he missed, and he hit this woman, and that's how he killed the blood. Amar Papa. Shor shenogach es hashivcha. What if a shor shtois to shivcha? Now, if a shor shtois to Bas Yisrael, we made quite clear from our Bava and from the Mishnah that there is no payment of nezek. You don't pay the mevlodos. But what if a shor shtois to shivcha v'yotzu yilata? There shalom the mevlodos. There he has to pay the value of the vlodos to the owner of the shivcha. My time. Chamrosa mabarta ba'al mekudas. We look at a shivcha like a chamar. The same way, if a ox stoiced an animal and killed a vlad, the owner of the ox would have to pay the owner of the vlad. A shivcha is no different at all. The Omakra, the pasuk says, "Shavu lachem poi im achamar," which is what Avram told Eliezer, "Am hadoim lachamar." Gewaltig. Now, Tosfos asks an interesting question because our Gemara clearly here is mashma that you look at a shivcha like a behema, and therefore any damages you'd pay. But Tosfos asks from an exception to this rule, because Tosfos asks him, "Timer hagabi bortznan b'shili pirkin novel l'toicha ever yama potter." It says shor v'loy adam chamor v'loy kalim. So we do exclude damages done to an eved. If you look at it like it's an animal, so then you should be chayiv to pay niskei shivcha in a bar as well, and the Gemara says you don't have to. Zokt Tosfos here it's just an exclusive thing lagabe demei v'lodos. V'shlomo the hachi loy mira kasav shor ela b'dmei v'lodos. It's only because when we're talking about the vladis of a Yisrael, there the vladis we say belong exclusively to the husband. So it's not. We don't look at it like a part of the mother. We look at it. The Torah taught us that vladis are separate and they go straight to the Baal. Because it says Baal Isha. Avulkan ha vladis la'odoi. The Baal there is no din vladis to the Baal. Because here it goes to the Adon, therefore you would pay. So you can't bring me a raya from the fact that we consider this person a human, Lagabe, being potter from Niskei Bar, to the fact that the Gemara here is Mechayiv, the owner of the ox that killed these vlados, to pay the owner. Okay, it's only a din. Vladis is the only time you say you don't play Vladis is only a din if there's a Baal there. Okay, let's see the Gemara back there. Ketet mishalom d'mei vladis. How is the assessment made? And the Gemara is going to discuss that there's more than just the value of the vlad. There's also an enhancement, as we learned yesterday. A pregnant woman looks healthier, looks more robust, and there's that added value as well. So let's see how we break this down to get the value. I'm sorry?
She can't do as much.
Yeah, but she looks healthier. So there's an advantage to that. She has cravings. Ketad mishalem d'mei v'lados. Zok to Gemara, it's d'mei v'lados u'shvach v'lados mi b'ilei. there isn't just Demei Vlados, there's more. As Rashi speaks out, the Kadani Shamines Isha. If you're making an assessment on the value of the woman, the Yesh Bechlal Shumazu Demei Vlados. First of all, there is the value of Vlados, which we know for sure, but there's more. Umasha Isha nearest Mishubachas Ubala Sevarim B'Pnei Ober B'Damei Yikarin. A woman is more blown up, she's more inflated. So in those days that looked healthier, right? We call it zafting, right? So therefore, that's also a value that should be assessed. In fact, that is the Allah. There's actually two components to the benefit that this woman has when she's pregnant. There's the Mei Vladois, which is the actual value of the Vladois, but there's also her advantage. She looks healthier, she's worth more. So therefore, you see how much she's worth before she gives birth, when she still has that extra air of health before she gave birth, the Chama Yafa Mishayolda, and that's also a payment made to, let's say now for the husband, but we'll discuss shortly.
She has a husband, so like, I think she's worth more because she looks better. She has a husband, so who's gonna? She's not like
No, she looks healthier, so we're talking about her value to be sold as a slave.
even though she's okay.
Okay, so let's see what it says in Rashi. Shamanes ha'isha. We assess the value of the woman. Zokt Rashi, Kama ha'isha yafa bishal vlados halalu. How much she's worth because she has these vlados. Achal yalda till she gives birth. The chami yafa achshav kishen nisroikna, and the drop in value because now she no longer carries an over. V'nifchasu damel, and therefore she's worth less. That difference v'noisen labal. That's paid to the bal. Now Zokt Rashi. The woman herself got shtoish. She also got damaged. We're not discussing that here. Of course, you take a woman without a broken arm or with a broken arm, naturally she's worth less. That nezek is not the payment being discussed here. That doesn't go to her husband. That goes to her. The inkan elabchas rikun ha'uber. Avakash gufa machmasamaka. But the fact that she herself was injured, and therefore v'nif chesudameha, she's worth less than she would have been able to be sold for before her injury. That's hunesek. That's damages to her body. That there is no xeris to kosav about that it goes to the husband. That's hers. Any other damage that she suffers, she gets it, but she doesn't get it all. There's actually a split. But in Gemara Ksubis, the Gemara tells us, if she has an internal injury that's not visible, and therefore her husband is not impacted by it, she gets 2/3, and he gets 1/3. If it's a open, if it's a noticeable wound, she's missing an arm, then loy beis chalak, he gets 2 chalak. So we'll get into, we're not focusing now on that split, but Rashi is just bringing out that just because we're discussing the decrease in value due to the velodois, that's not the only damages paid here. There's other damages as well that do belong to the woman that the Torah does not grant to the husband.
I'm believing this point, but if we're valuing her based on shift she can get,
right?
Wouldn't Adam rather pay for someone who could do more work than because she looks better, she looks nicer because she's pregnant?
Yeah, because eventually she's going to give birth and she'll be a healthier person. And ultimately, I'm buying a higher quality person. Right now, temporarily, while she's carrying, she can. But since she looks healthier, once she gives birth, she'll be a stronger person.
So then again, so it's after the fact. So then,
but since she looks healthy now, I give her more value. I expect that I'll be able to get more out of her. So Zok to Gemara as follows. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Mishaisha kishisha ledis mishabachas. So Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel made a comment on the Chachamim, and it wasn't clear in the Mishnah what he meant. What exactly is Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel trying to say? Zok to Rashi, the mashma, the hachi kamar le. It's mashma that what Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is commenting on the Tanakama as follows: Dimkein lididach islach the mishaisha yorledas mishabachas. You're telling me that when the woman gives birth, she'll be worth more. The Tanakama Hakamar the Mifsacha. The Tanakama says that she's worth less. So the Tanakama says that she's worth less because that's how you make the assessment of the Vlad. She's worth less without her Vlad than she is worth with her Vlad. So you're saying that she ends up being worth less. So Frank the Gemara, Maikam, Rabba Hachikam. Are you telling me that if you look at the value of the woman herself, she's going to be worth more pregnant than she's going to be worth post-pregnancy? To the contrary, a woman is worth more once she gives birth. Why is that? Zok Rashi, why? As a matter of fact, if you sell her when she's pregnant, taking away the value of her vlad, but looking at the value of her herself, she'll be worth less. She might not survive childbirth. That's a big risk that makes her as a whole worth less. If anything, once she gives birth, she's worth more. So how could you assess damages that she's worth less because she had her baby? To the contrary, the fact that they made her miscarry actually improved her own personal value. And this is what Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is commenting to the Chachamim. If that's how you assess it, you look at her value before she gave birth and after she gave birth, that's how you assess the value of the Vlodim. Well, the Nishtagach he won't give her anything. If anything, she's worth more, not less than before. So the way you're assessing Chachamim, that you'll just look at her value before she gives birth and her value after she lost those children, there's not going to be a payment because her value went up. Ella, therefore, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel argues, and this is how he holds you make the assessment. Ella shominus avlodos. You look at the vlodos in and of themselves, what they would be worth, and that's the payment of vlodos to the husband, but no labal. But you don't, when you're assessing the vlodos, you don't look at the woman how much she's worth before and after, because if anything, she's worth more, not less. So it seems like there's almost a machlokes in Metzius. Tanya nami hachi. We have a brisa to support this understanding of the machlokes. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel said, "Isha mishabachas koidim sheteleit, yoyser milach sheteleit." It's the opposite. V'haloi isha mishabachas la'achas sheteleit, yoyser mikodim sheteleit. Ella, this is how Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel holds. You make the assessment of the value of the vlodos, and l'shavinus of vlodos independent of the mother, then they have value, and those are benois and labal. That is the payment that's made to the baal. Rava Amar Hachikaton. Rava says a different shot in Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. So in the first shot, which is Rabba's shot, the machlokes is that Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel holds that a woman is definitely worth more without the children than she is with the children. And therefore, you cannot make the assessment of the vlodos by looking at her value before and her value after, like the Rabbanan say. Therefore, you look at the vlodos themselves, and that's the payment made to the Baal.
Basic knowledge. So, is the blood considered a blood? Is at any point of her pregnancy, or when is the blood considered a blood?
I assume at any point.
So she just miscarried after 2 months.
If we know she miscarries, if she's in very low month, we might not even know she miscarried. Right? I guess as soon as you know that she miscarried, it was noticeable enough. So that is Rabba's pshat. According to Rabbi, the machlokes of Shimon Gamliel and the Tanakama is vichlal whether or not she's worth more or less. And Shimon Gamliel says she's worth more without the vlodos. So therefore, the only way to make an assessment is to look at the vlodos themselves. It's a little bit different. Isha, avada, the Isha does drop in value when she loses her children. So therefore, I agree with you, Chachamim, that that's a good way to assess the value of the vlodos, is take this woman and see what she's worth while she was pregnant, see what she's worth now. It will be a drop in value, not an increase in the value, and therefore that payment goes to the husband. But there's more here. She also, her body itself, as we learned earlier, according to the Chachamim Shita, she's also worth more. She looks healthier. So the question is, why does all that benefit? When you're looking at what she's worth pregnant, and then you look at what her value decreased because she lost her children, part of that assessment, part of that drop in value is not just the fact that the vlodas are missing, but there's also something that she looked healthier and she looked better. That portion, why should the husband get that? Why shouldn't she get that? So why shouldn't she be entitled to that as well? Ella, Rab Shimon Gamliel's argument is not that she's worth less. Forget it. She's talking worth more, but why does he get it all? Let her get some as well. Ella Shomin is Avaladois. You assess Avaladois for Noist and Labal, Ushvach Valadois. But when you look at how she was healthier, she looked healthier, she was worth more before she was sold, and now she's worth less, that she will also get a part. She gets a part in that as well. So the machlokes is no longer about whether or not she's worth more or less. Everybody agrees she's worth more. The question is she entitled to part of that damage? Let's see Rashi. Are you telling me that the person, the Baal, who the Torah granted the worth of Vladas, did the Torah also give him the value of her herself, that she was worth more because she looks healthier when she's pregnant? Shedmei gufa misalen, her guf, besides the Vladas, her guf itself becomes worth more. Are you going to say, Rabbanan, that the husband gets that payment? Havadai shvach demei davka machmas gufa namayos. Okay, her Vladas are contributing slightly to the fact that she looks better, but her guf is also contributing to that. So why should she not be entitled to at least part of that payment? The nezek, let's say that should be in the category of nezek, which we say she's entitled. So the machlokes, according to the way Rav is learning, the machlokes, according to the way Rav is learning, is merely that she's entitled to part of that damages. Tanya Namayachi, Amr Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, V'chi isha lemi shoyeledes mishabachas ve'ein la'atzma b'shvach v'lodis klum ela shamin nezek b'fnei atzmoi v'tzar b'fnei atzmoi. She gets her nezek, she gets her tzar. V'shamin es havelados v'nois l'nabal u'shvach v'lodos chalkin. The problem here is there's two different versions of what the Shita of Rab Shimon ben Gamliel is. Rabbah said it's that, in fact, there is a decrease, there's an increase in value to the woman, so there's no payment at all. And the Gemara brought a raya quoting Rab Shimon ben Gamliel saying exactly how Rabbah understood it. And now we have the Shita of Rabbah where Rab Shimon ben Gamliel agrees that she went down in value, but the argument is that she should have a part of it. And the Gemara brought a brisa to say that Rab Shimon ben Gamliel says that. So the problem is we have a steer down brises. What is it that Rab Shimon ben Gamliel said? Kasha, Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, Ad Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. Dr. Like Kasha, maybe there's no stira. Kan bivim akeres, kan b'sheinim avakeres. When do you say that a woman is worth less when she's pregnant? Which is the first shita, which is the shita of Rabbah, that version of Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. That's if it's her first child. A woman, when she's carrying her first child, is a much greater sakana. There, in fact, we'll say that she's more valuable after, and there should be no payment of shvach at all. However, once she's talking about her second or third child, there we say that she's worth more while she's pregnant, and that's the second brisa of Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. For Rabbanan Damri, shvach v'ladois nami lebal. The Rabbanan hold that the Torah granted the shvach v'ladois to the Baal as well. My timer. You can't just make that up willy-nilly. The Torah said the vlad goes to the husband. Where do you see that the husband should have a right in her nezek as well? Because her body was devalued. And if we look at Rashi, so if we look at the pasuk, it says v'chinasu anoshim v'nakvu ishahara, and they punched a woman who was expecting. So it says kashiyash of Baal ha'isha. It's this pasuk of Baal ha'isha where we learn that the demei of Lodis go to the Baal. But where does it say anything about her benefit that the Baal should be entitled to? If it doesn't say that in the pasuk, how could you take something that's hers and give it to him? Zok Gemara, I'll tell you where we know it. Kiditnan mimashma shenemer v'yotzi yiladah. The pasuk tells us a story. V'nakvu isha v'yotzi yiladah. Guess what? If it was nakvu isha v'yotzi yiladah, I could have figured out that she must have been pregnant. How did Yiladim come out? So why did the Torah have to say v'nakvu isha hara? So the word isha hara is extra. So zok to Gemara, any deshi hara, matai b'loim hara. Why is the Torah sticking into the hara? Loy malach that shvach hiroyon lebal. So v'nok v'isha hara, that's also this pasuk that says the Baal Isha gets it, it's going on the Isha hara as well. So not only does he get the Vladois, he's also entitled to part of the Shvach, to all of the Shvach, and therefore he gets it all. So that's the Sfar of the Rabbanan. If you ask her, is it fair that he should get her Nezek? She'll say it's clearly Lashon Hara. Why she lost it. So Zok to Gemara, Tamad Loimer Hara, Loimer Lach Shvach, Hiroyin Labal. Virab Shimon ben Gamliel, Hi Hara, my Dorish Pay. What is he going to do with the word Hara? Zok to Gemara, Mi Boyle Lechetanya. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov Omer, Lo Olam Eini Chayiv, Achi Akena Keneged Beis HaHiroyin. Where does he have to hit her in order to be Mechayiv him to pay damages for the blood? It's Keneged Beis HaHiroyin. I'm going to assume that means Keneged Oisei Amokim. That's what I'm going to assume it means. If the article says definitely, please correct me. The womb. So that means in the stomach? I'm not sure exactly what that means. Okay, let's see the end of the Gemara and then we'll see if we could reverse engineer it. Omar Papa Loitem Keneged Beis HaHiroyin Mamish doesn't mean Mamish Keneged the womb. Elakal Heicha de Solek Beis Shichma Lavlad. Meaning anywhere in her torso is going to be a place where we would mechayiv him to pay the mevlados if that impacted the baby. If he only punched her in the arm or leg, not in the torso, then he would be potter. But anywhere in the torso would be chayiv. And the base of means the womb itself would be lower down, the stomach, but now even in the back, anywhere is going to impact the baby. Dr. Gemara weiter. Haisa shivcha v'nishtachera oigeyeres potter. Amarabba loy shanu. Is that we say that the person who caused the babies to die are potter if the owner of these vlados was a ger who had no yarshim. That's only a shachavo b'chayei hager. So at the time of the chavala, there was a chiyuv triggered for the mazik to pay the ger, umeis a ger, and now the ger died. So automatically, the mazik is the first person there to seize the money that he owed the ger. That's when he's going to be potter from paying. The kivin the chabal ba the chayei hager. The moment he made the chavala and the ger was alive, zacha b'hu ger. Now the ger is owed money by from the mazik. The chivin the meis hager, and now that the ger died, zacha b'hu min hager. The mazik is the first one there, so he will be zoiche in that money from the ger. But aval chaval bala achamisis hager. What if the chavala came after Mr. Ger? Then zochi la iu b'gavayu. If her husband dies, and now she's carrying the children that her husband gave her, we say now she takes over and she owns those children. She owns those children now. So money that's owed to a ger, that the mazik will be koine the moment the ger dies. But the velodas, she yarshins them. If he dies, she gets to keep them. That's going to require a little bit of information as to why. But she yarshins the velodas. That they're given to her once he dies, and therefore now anyone who's mazik them has to deal with her.
So she's the Irish. The mazik when he's Mexican the moment, he's the Irish.
It doesn't go. It goes to his yarshim, not her yarshim. It doesn't go to his yarshim. It goes to her. It doesn't go to hers. It goes to his yarshim. Omar Rab Chisda, Maridichi. I argue on you, Rabbi. Rashi says the definition of Maridichi is Baal Shmuazu. So I guess
he is yours.
I'm sorry.
You the owner.
Right. So you're Rab Chisda, Rabbi. This is your stickle. Atu v'lodlois troininu. Are you telling me babies are like money? V'zachi b'hu, and she's zoichin them? That doesn't make sense. I disagree with you. I disagree with you that she owns it, and therefore she yarshin money from him, and now they have to pay her. Ella isei lebal. If the Baal is alive, zachalei rachmana. The Torah gave him the dmei vlados. Less lebal. If the Baal dies, what is the status of these babies? Loi, they're nobodies. And therefore, if someone was mazik these vlados, the mazik will be put. So we have a machloikis between a Chisda and Rabba. a woman who's married to a ger, she's pregnant, she loses her husband. Who do these vlados belong to? According to Rava, they belong to her, and therefore, if she gets damaged, if the vlados gets damaged, the mazik has to pay her. According to Reb Chisda, they don't belong to her; they belong to nobody, and therefore he doesn't have to pay. Zok Gemara Meisvei. Let's see if we can bring a raya. Hika es ha'isha v'yatzu yolada. They hit this woman and her yolada went out. Nois nezek v'tzar leisha. Right, we know that. Udemei vlados lebal. We actually had this price a couple of days ago. Udemei vlados lebal. Ein abal. What if the bal is not around? Nois in liyarshav. It goes to his yarshim. Ein isha. If the woman is not around, then whatever nezek payment was due payable to her, nois in liyarshav. What about Haisha Shivcha v'nishtachra agiyaris? So exactly our case, Zocha. And the Gemara says, Zocha tzmashma, even if this happened, la'achar misas hager, still Zocha ba, he doesn't have to pay. So this proves Rav Chisda's point, that he doesn't have to pay, the mazik doesn't have to pay, even if the damage occurred afterwards. Amri, Frank Gemara, I don't understand. Umi adiva mi masnisen? How does this price show that it's speaking where the damage occurred after he died? In the Mishnah itself, which discusses the same case, Reb Chisda stelled that it's speaking, the Rava stelled that it's only speaking if the damage occurred before the death of the husband, not after. So this brisa is no more clear than our Mishnah. So why are you asking me from the brisa? Just like Rabbah said that our Mishnah is speaking where the damage occurred while the ger was alive, and then umeis hager. So there's no reason to ask a kasha from here. Toshvis asks, first step is there was even a havami. Or let's say the stock is speaking la'achamisas hager. So if it's la'achamisas hager, we're going to have a kasha. If it's zochaba, if he doesn't have to pay, so isn't that a raya? Isn't that a raya to Reb Chisda against Rava? Zok no. Vitani zachsa. What the brisa means is that she taka gets paid, exactly like Rabbah learned. And Tosfos says, "Ve'ein magia brisa." We're not changing the word from zacha to zachsa. Ela kloimer zacha mishesh teschus zacha. Someone's going to get it. Don't assume the person who gets it, who gets to keep it, is the mazik. The person who gets to keep it is her because she does take over the uber once her husband dies. Let's suggest that this machloikis as to whether or not the woman yarshins the uber when her husband dies is totally in a machlokes tonight. What does the brisa say? Bas Yisrael shenises lager v'nis abra mimenu. A Bas Yisrael was married to a ger and she became expecting v'chav al ba, and now she was punched, and because of that she lost her vlad. V'chaye hager, if this injury happened in the life of the ger, noishin the mevlados lager. Clearly, the ger gets to keep the mevlados. La'achamisas hager, but if this occurred, la'achamisas hager, exactly the discussion that we're having, who gets paid? Tanichad chayiv. We have one price that said it was chayiv, which would be like Rabbah, who says that who the mazik is have to pay who? Obviously, to pay the almana. But Tanichad the potter, and the other price says it's potter, which supports Reb Chisda because she doesn't own it, and therefore the mazik is potter. My love tonight. Let's say the machlokes tanoim. Zoktamar leRabba vade tanoim. According to Rabbah, who holds that you're chayiv to pay the woman, the fact that there's one brisa that says it's potter, Rabbah can't possibly agree with that brisa. It doesn't work. El Reb Chisda, who holds that you're potter to pay anybody because the vlad belongs to nobody. Maybe we can say that. Maybe we can explain the brisa that says chayiv why you would be chayiv. El Reb Chisda mila mitanoi. Is it a machlokes? Maybe not. Maybe harabanon. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. Maybe the brisa that says chayiv is going according to Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, and the chayiv that he has to pay the wife is not talking about the demei vlados, because the demei vlados we said you don't have to pay for it all. But maybe he's talking about the shvach vlados, where Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, at least in Rab Chisda's pshat, in the second pshat, in Rabba's pshat, said that the payment, the value of the shvach vlados, she gets to keep part of it. So the chayiv is her part, maybe. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. My ear la'achamisa. What was the case here? The machlokes chayiv or potter is la'achamisa chayiv. Her shvach v'loda she gets even if her husband's alive. So my ear la'achamisa afilu mechayim nami is lapalga. We already established on Amar Aleph that the shvach v'loda she's entitled to have of it, but she's entitled to have it even though her husband's alive. So if Chayiv is going on the Shvach V'Ladis, why is the discussion only La'achar Misa, even Koidim Misa, she's entitled to her share? Zaktimar, true. Mechayim is Lapalga, but La'achar Misa Kulei, she'll get it all. She'll get it all. Which now begs the question, the same way she didn't yarshin the V'Ladis from her husband, why is she yarshining his share of the Shvach V'Ladis? So we'll have to come back to that. But clearly what the Gemara is saying here is that she will yarshin her husband's chelik of the Shvach V'Ladis, even though she won't get the V'Ladis. Maybe the Brisa that says Chayiv and the Brisa that says Potter are both Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Kan b'Shvach V'Ladois, the Brisa that says Chayiv is talking about the Shvach V'Ladois that she gets to keep. Kan b'Dmei V'Ladois, but the Dmei V'Ladois, as Reb Chista says, she doesn't get to keep. They don't belong to anybody. Zok Gemara Amri, let's think about this. Mishvach V'Ladois lishama Dmei V'Ladois. We have here a machlokes, but there shouldn't really be any difference in how there's a succession with the Shvach V'Ladois and the Mei V'Ladois. In other words, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel and the Rabbanan argue if she's entitled to part of the Shvach V'Ladois. But there's no machlokes about succession. In other words, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel also agrees to the Rabbanan. Whatever they hold about Yarshining the V'Ladois, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel will hold. You don't see that they're arguing about the Yerusha of the V'Ladois. So if that's the case, why should there be any difference? If the Shvach V'Ladois, according to Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, is transferring over to her, if the husband share the Shvach V'Ladois transfers to her, well then, according to the Rabbanan, the V'Ladois should transfer to her. How can you make that distinction? Umi the Reb Shimon ben Gamliel lishma l'Rabbanan, and from the fact that Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says that she yashin sheschelik, the Rabbanan would also say by V'Ladois she yashin sheschelik. So if that's the case, how could you make a distinction? Harab Shimon Harabanan and say that she gets the Yarshin, the Shvach V'Ladois, but not the Dvei V'Ladois. It doesn't make any sense. So Reb Chista's teretz doesn't make any sense. Amri is a Gemara lo Shvach V'Ladois the Shaycha Yod Begavayu Shvach V'Ladois, where even when he's alive, she has a chelik of it, she has a share in it, so she has a greater grasp on it. Therefore, Zachi B'Hu B'Kulu, when he dies, she'll take over. It's almost like when two people, a husband and a wife, own a house together, she doesn't have to yarshin him. If he dies, automatically her ownership spreads to the whole house. She's already as a tfis in the house, right? There's no land transfer tax. There's no realizing of a capital gain when the value transfers from the husband to the wife if he dies, or vice versa, because her ownership expands. So that's how we would perceive Shvach V'Ladois. But the Mei V'Ladois, the Lo Shaycha Yoda Begavayu, where she had nothing to do with the Mei V'Ladois, there, when he dies, she will not be yarshining Lo Zacha Bukla. So there's actually a good argument to make a distinction that Shvach V'Ladois would transfer, his chelik of the Shvach V'Ladois would transfer over to her, but the V'Ladois themselves will not transfer over to her, and that's why it's potter. What would be the halacha? Is hamachzik b'shtarois of shalger. Now, a ger has a star, meaning a ger has a star. Reuven wrote him a star that the Reuven owes the ger $100,000, and meaning now the star is a shibud. It's this raya of the shibud that the ger has on Reuven's karkois. So there's no havamina that when you just pick up and coin a piece of paper that automatically the balchoiv that owed the ger money now owes you money. That's not the case at all. The shaila here is it's the paper. At least are you coining the paper? Hamachzik b'shtarois of shalger mahu. Do you say man the machzik b'shtara adatei da arahu the machzik? When I'm picking up the star, I don't want the paper. I'm picking it up because I feel by being kind of the star, I'll be kind of the shibud behind the star. But that's not true. It won't work. The mice, it's not a good kinyan, and therefore a star he blives with nothing. Because if you pick up the star with the intent to be kind of karka, and you weren't kind of karka, you don't default back to be kind of the star because you didn't have command to be kind of the star. Ustar nami lekana the lav daite ashtar. Oidam, do you say no? Daite nami ashtar. When I pick up the star, I want both. I want to get everything. Omer lei ani mayri. I don't answer me your shaila. I'm sorry. Why would he want the star? So he can use it as a bottle stopper. I mean, there's very little value in the star. What is your shaila? Omer lei no, I'm a polisher. Lots. There's all geld. I put pennies. There's all epis. That's something that we have a shaila. Maybe he has kavan to be kind of. Amar Rabba, Mishkoina shall Yisrael biyad ger. What happened? Reuben owed a ger $100,000, and because of that, there was a Rolex that the ger was holding as a mashkin. Umeisa ger, and now the ger died. Uboy Yisrael lacher, another yid came, v'hichzik boy, and grabbed the watch because he wants to be konya the shibud that is on that watch that's now that the ger gave up. The halach is my chinois miyadai. You take it away from him and you give it back to the loiva. My time. Why is it? Even the misla ger, once the ger dies, hakale shibude. Now the choiv evaporated. In other words, the loiva got lucky that his balchoiv was a ger who had no yoshim, so he goes scot free, and therefore there's no shibud anymore. So when you grab the watch was already 100% in the malus rishus. There's always yoshim. By Judah, there's always yoshim because you can go back generations and find somebody on the father's side. Mishkoidish shall ger biyad Yisrael. What if it was the opposite? The ger owed money and his mashkin was by a yid who made a ger and the ger died. So now the Yisrael has some shibud on this watch because the Yisrael is owed money and he's trying to get paid from this watch. But uvoy Yisrael lachav v'hichzik boy and grab the watch. So the halach is zeh kana keneged moisav. The malva, let's say malva was owed $50,000, but the watch is worth $100,000. So we say as soon as the ger dies, the malva takes ownership of $50,000 worth of value in this watch. But he wasn't there to chop it. The guy who chopped it, v'zeh kana hashar. He'll get the rest of the equity. Because the only part that we say that automatically parks by the malva is connected ma'isa. The rest is just hefker. It's never first come first serve. Furthermore, where's the watch? The watch is probably in this guy's safe. So why would we say that some stranger who came and grabbed it gets the rest of the watch? As soon as the guy died, the malva had a shibud, but the malva also has the watch in his rishos, so it should have automatically been kaina. So Rashi learns the lesson means the malva is not around. So if he was there, if the malva was there present by his chaser, he could have been kainit himself. Mati kani. The boy makni mati kani. If he wanted to be kainit himself, he would be able to. Therefore, kani lay nami chatzerei. His chaser will be kainit. But the last of the day. But if he's not around, so he himself could not have made a kinyan. The boy lemikni lay mati kani. Therefore, chatzerei nami lay kani. Dr. Gemara, that's not true. Your chaser is kainit for you, even if you're not there. V'hilchasa the lesay bechatzerei the lay kani. The halacha is, you know why you're not kainit in this case? Because the watch wasn't in the chaser. It's speaking in a case where the watch was not in the chaser. The watch was not in the chaser. He couldn't have been kainit. This guy grabbed it, and therefore he seized the remaining equity. Okay, we'll stop here. From now on till the end of the parak, we're going to be in a rut because we're learning all about bar. Till the end of the parak, the rest of the parak focuses on the halacha of bar. We finished now. We just went through some miscellaneous odds and ends that we were buttoning up. So now we're getting right back into bar.
Dus mijn woord scot free. Wie can the expression scot? What is scot?
You don't know the Scott is?
Why scot? Stay.